I really had nothing but success really my entire athletic career.
He misses Browne. Browne see if he can make him pay. Going for Sinatro. Great grab! And in the end zone. Splendoria double move. Go up top to him. Number 7 open. He's got it. A perfect pass. Browne to Splendoria, and Skyline takes the lead.
This is Max Browne, a former 5-star recruit and the #1 quarterback in the class of 2013, ranked ahead of guys like Jalen Ramsey, Derrick Henry, and Jared Goff. But just 3 years after committing to USC, he was already getting labeled as one of the biggest busts in college football history.
Like, where do I go from now? This whole equation that I've trusted my whole life didn't work, straight up.
So how did Max go from failing to reach the NFL, to moving across the country only to sleep on the floor of Gary Vee's office, to becoming a lead college football analyst, all in just 6 years?
This is a great question, and this might be the best clip of the whole show.
Was there a time that you realized your football career was ostensibly over?
You know, you would have never got this out of me back then, but
Max Browne was born in 1995 in Sammamish, Washington, a suburb east of Seattle. Here, he grew up the youngest of 4 boys and quickly became obsessed with football. This was due in large part to the fact that his older brother Mitch was the first ever quarterback at Skyline High School, which had just opened in 1997, and a 5-year-old Max Browne had a front row seat to it all.
I mean, I do remember at least bits and pieces of it. I mean, literally, you know, when I look back, hey, what are my first memories? It is watching my older brother lead my hometown to a state championship. And that really, honestly, like set the direction of my childhood identity. And I don't even think that's an exaggeration. I mean, even in my hometown, football was big, not even just because of my brother, but the program really took off in the suburbs of Seattle, and we were really good, not only in the state, but nationally. But I remember him winning state. I remember my parents saying the first playoff game was like a 6-hour drive away, 7-hour drive away. And they said that I had to take a nap that day to be able to drive down and watch the whole game, which I was not pleased that I had to take a nap. But you better believe I sat my ass down, went to sleep because I knew I wanted to catch that game at Columbia River. But it was fun. And like I said, it just, you know, from then on, it was, you know, at 7 years old or however old you are in first grade, with that first time that recess happens, ball rolls out, I was quarterback, and I was really quarterback Max for the next 15 years or so.
Max quickly became known as the chosen one in his neighborhood for his above average height, strong arm, and obsession with football. However, it wasn't until a few years later that he started to realize just how unique his talent was.
Yeah, I remember in 4th grade, my offense, we were running like spread offense, and we're talking, you know, bubble screens and slants and go balls. We're not talking like, you know, full field progression reads, but we're, like I said, I mean, I remember like throwing for like 3,000 yards, and we were the only team in the conference that threw the ball. And I remember just walking away from that season, and you get comments from dads and opposing coaches like, you guys are doing something different. And the reason you're doing something different is because you got this quarterback guy. So that's probably the age that I knew something was different, so to speak. I was a big hooper and football player all the way through 8th grade. So at that point, it was kind of neck and neck. And then as a 6'5" white guy, you know that, hey, that's a great foundation for a quarterback and not the best foundation for a hooper. So football obviously took over. And then in 7th grade, it was like 4th grade, that's when I realized, hey, this is kind of like different. And then 7th grade, you know, you start projecting towards high school. I went to a public school. The quarterback at my high school before me was the #1 quarterback in the country. And so you kind of project forward, like I was playing up as well. I was a bigger kid. So there was like no quarterback when I was in 7th grade, no quarterback in the 8th grade class. Then you project forward to the 9th grade class, and it was like, hey, I think I can beat those guys out when time comes. And again, doing the private quarterback training, you're doing the process and all that. And I think that's where it really kicked into gear at 7th grade of like, hey, this whole playing Division I thing could very much be real if we work our ass off to make it happen.
Entering high school, Max knew he'd be sitting behind another star quarterback his freshman year, meaning he'd have to watch the Skyline Spartans win their 3rd consecutive state championship as a backup. However, even on the bench, Max's talent was undeniable. And before ever starting a single varsity game, Max had received his first college offer from the University of Washington. The following year, the 6'5", 210-pound sophomore was named the varsity starter and led the Spartans to a 12-2 record after throwing for over 4,000 yards and 50 touchdowns. But even today, it's not the stats that Max remembers.
My sophomore year, again, replacing a hotshot quarterback, 5-star guy, we were going for a four-peat in my hometown, 4 state championships in a row, tons of pressure from just whether it was real pressure or pressure that, hey, my 14, 15-year-old self kind of more manufactured. We were going for that four-peat, and we were heavy favorites in the state championship game and lost. And I wore a lot of that on my shoulders of, hey, what could have I done differently? And, to kind of ruin might be a strong word, but I also think there's some realness to that, to like lose that game and not like my entire childhood dream was to bring a state championship to my hometown. I didn't really understand the true meaning of prayer when I was younger, but like that was always a thing that I would pray for, is like, let me bring a state title back to my hometown. So to get so close and have that goal be right on your fingertips and not get it done and get upset in a big fashion as heavy favorites, I remember crying the whole time on the way back home. And I really point back to that of, I think that moment, established some grit in me. I think that whole next off season, I kicked things into a new gear of like, this ain't happening. Let's go pedal to the metal kind of thing and really dig in. And I point back to that as like almost a positive, because I think for me and my team, it made us go to another level. But that is one point that, and it's maybe more of a team aspect, but I do think it impacted me individually of, my mindset on work and the little things, and, the difference between winning the job and not winning the job, the difference between winning and losing as a team, very much stems back to that sophomore year heartbreak.
As one Seattle Times writer put it, from then on, Max followed a similar formula. He outworked everyone, and he won, and he won, and he won. By the time he graduated, Max had led the Spartans to 2 more state titles, winning them both. He'd been named the Gatorade Player of the Year twice, and was the #1 quarterback in the class of 2013, ahead of guys like Jared Goff and Baker Mayfield. But Max's self-described fairy tale obviously didn't end there.
The process was awesome. I mean, to be going to school and having coaches stop by and, again, that whole fairy tale narrative where I have stories of, Nick Saban pulling me out of art class and talking to me on the phone. There's Ed Orgeron roaming the hallways and waving to me from afar, and just all those different stories, which is amazing. And, the movie The Blind Side came out when I was in like 8th grade or so, and you see that on a movie screen, and I'm kind of like, living that in some regard as a high school kid, which is amazing. I mean, especially as a kid who watched my older brother be the state player of the year, and he didn't get Division I opportunities, and you're kind of, again, following this process and this whole recipe of success. It was awesome. I don't think my parents raised me in a way where I never really got caught up in the whole hoopla of recruiting, the whole game, and that you see nowadays of guys picking one hat, throwing it away, and guys going on a bunch of these different visits. And to me, I was very wary, and maybe almost to my own fault, I didn't want to lead these coaches on. Like, if I only had like 16 offers as the #1 quarterback in the country. Most guys at the #1 quarterback in the country, they have 40, 50 offers. But when Duke reached out to me, I was like, I'm never going to Duke. When Vanderbilt reached out to me, I'm never going to Vanderbilt. So I didn't play the whole recruiting game as much as maybe some other quarterbacks did. But I had it, and it circles back to your first question of, the expectations and whatnot. I had it in my mind that I wanted to play at a blue blood program, because if I want to be the best and I'm the top guy, that's what you do. You go play at a blue blood program. And in hindsight, like, there's a lot of guys that don't have that mentality, right? They go to the hometown school and all that. And that was not how I was wired. I never drank the Kool-Aid necessarily of the University of Washington that was right in my backyard. If I was 5 years younger, that could have been different, because Washington was a lot better when 5 years later. But I just had in my mind, wanted to go to a blue blood program, and naturally I was down between Oklahoma and USC. Alabama was third, but it was really Oklahoma or USC. And at that time, Oklahoma and USC were the quarterback universities. Oklahoma had Landry Jones and Sam Bradford coming off those productive eras, and then USC is well documented the quarterbacks they had. So I just had that in my mind, and it was an awesome process. It was stressful a little bit there. I mean, you're making the biggest decision of your life up until that point. But I felt very confident, and that's why I stuck with USC even after they, went 7-6 my senior year of high school. And USC was the pinnacle school, and it was the process was a blessing for sure.
Now, at this point, I think it's worth mentioning that up until this moment, Max had had nothing but success his entire athletic career. His formula of setting a goal, working hard towards that goal, and then achieving it had never failed him. So why should he expect anything different heading into USC?
USC in January of 2013, I graduated high school early. Matt Barkley had left for the NFL, and my expectation with no hedge was that I was going to do exactly what Matt Barkley did and win the job and start as a true freshman and have success and, be at USC for 3 years, hopefully win some awards and bring a championship to USC and go to the NFL, and everything's going to be smooth sailing. And I got to USC, and it took me, I definitely was a guy who needed a red shirt. And, comparing it to current times, like, Dylan Raiola, that's the path that I thought I was going to have, right? Of you go in, you win the job as a true freshman, you have success. Obviously things aren't perfect as a true freshman, but that's the transition that I thought I was going to have. And it took me much longer than I thought to adjust to college football. And I definitely think my confidence took a hit. And again, I think it comes back to, like we were talking about, that throughout my entire life, I had that consistent success on the back of working hard. And that was the recipe I brought to USC. I won weightlifter of the year as a backup quarterback my redshirt freshman year. And I kind of got to the point of trusting the work. And no matter how things shake out, I'll always be able to look myself in the mirror and say, hey, no one outworked me, which I don't mean to be a David Goggins hardo here, but that's what I went back to. I think looking back, when people ask me, hey, what could I have done differently? I wish I would have, I genuinely wish I wasn't so intense. I was committed to being an elite quarterback, but at times I think it let me, I remember being in astrology class as a true freshman, studying the playbook on the side for like a spring Tuesday practice. Because what they tell you is treat every practice like the Super Bowl, treat every practice like a game. And if I'm at USC battling for a quarterback job, like that's how I need to approach it. But I think that mentality worked against me a little bit because I put so much pressure on myself. And to our conversation, maybe that stems back to the early days of how I was wired.
Max went on to redshirt his freshman year and sat as the backup the next 2 years in 2014 and 2015. Which in today's college football would have led many of the top QBs to just transfer. But Max was taking a different approach.
I viewed transferring as failing. I viewed transfer, that's just the way I was wired, is like, hey, if you transferred, especially as a top guy, that means you failed in some regard. And I know that sounds gnarly, and that's why, again, I think the connotation around transferring is a lot different nowadays than when it was back then. Back then, I think there was some of that of, hey, if you were a transfer and you had to drop down to a school or go to a different school, the connotation around that was different. And I definitely think I added some negative perception of that. And I don't really know necessarily why that was the case. But that was just how I was wired. And I also think there was some of that, I wanted to work my way through that. And I did enjoy going to school at USC. And I did like that path. And then when I stepped on the field, it was very, very much like, a battle and whatnot. But they tell you to trust the process and keep chipping away and things like that. And I think I very much subscribe to that. And yes, by year 3, I wasn't starting, but I had a really good spring in year 3. And so after year 1, after year 2, going into my 3rd spring, that's when I took a jump, and that gave me renewed confidence of like, hey, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. Like the process is going to work. I took my lumps year 1 and year 2, but that's what I needed to take. That's how I needed to evolve, kind of thing. And so I just, a bunch of factors kind of went into it. But in the back of my mind throughout the whole process, what I would always say, or, my in my internal circle was, I'm going to take the Mark Sanchez path, where I'm going to sit, I'm going to wait my turn, and I'm going to start as a redshirt junior and redshirt senior, similar to what Miller Moss is doing now for USC. And at that point, being the quarterback at USC, I'd rather be the quarterback at USC for 2 years, 1 year, than transfer to some other school. And you never know if you have to re-earn your stripes or how that plays out. And that's just how I saw the landscape.
And with the quarterback ahead of him finally entering the NFL draft, coming into the spring of 2016, Max had a great chance of becoming USC's next starting QB. However, much to the surprise of a lot of people inside and outside of the program, the redshirt junior faced stiff competition that offseason from a true freshman named Sam Darnold. Still, Max came out on top, and on August 20th, 2016, Clay Helton named him the team starter and a captain all in the same week. But less than 2 weeks later, Max and the Trojans were trounced 52-6 by the defending national champions and the country's #1 team. And while Max's performance was the least of USC's worries, the Trojans lost again 2 weeks later to #7 Stanford to start the season a disappointing 1-2. The day after the loss, Clay Helton called Max into his office and told him Darnold would be replacing him as the team starter. Max recalls crying his eyes out for an hour and being hit with a wave of uncertainty about what was going to happen next.
Hello, handsome. Nice face you shaved there. Whether you're going for clean shaven or maintaining a beard, Dollar Shave Club offers shaving grooming products that are always high quality but never overpriced.
And for those of you who are still trimming your beard and your balls with the same trimmer, Dollar Shave Club's double header electric trimmer comes with 2 interchangeable heads, so you can stay looking fresh without being gross.
Plus, it's waterproof and battery operated, so you can even use it in the shower. Or maybe you're a more detail-oriented person that needs a little extra trim around your nose, ears, brows, sideburns, or neck. Well, that's where the Style Detailer Precision Trimmer comes in with its 360-degree rotary head that never misses a hair. And don't just take my word for it, you can go to their site right now and get 20% off $20 or more and get your products delivered straight to your door. Visit dollarshaveclub.com/Tyler and use promo code Tyler for 20% off $20 or more. And remember, however you shave, Dollar Shave Club is here to help you stay handsome.
I never was diagnosed with depression, but man, it was hard getting out of bed in those mornings. And man, it's hard. I've always been a motivated kid, like we've talked about, but man, it was hard to stay locked in and motivated and engaged that whole season, because you kind of check out, and it's somewhat natural. I'm sure Bryce Young is dealing with that right now, as getting benched as the Panthers starter. And so it taps in not only to the football side of things, but your identity as a human being, because everyone says, hey, hard work always pays off. That's not the case. Hard work can give you peace of mind, but it just really tapped into, where do I go from now? And it was depressing. That was the lowest that I'd been in my life, because you just go to a point where, like, where do I go from now, or where do I go to now? Again, this whole equation that I've trusted my whole life didn't work, straight up. And that tests you for sure. That was a very, very difficult time.
Max led USC's scout team for the rest of the year as the Trojans went on to win 9 of their next 10 games under Sam Darnold, including the Rose Bowl, which Max watched from his couch after transferring a month prior. But his football journey wasn't done yet, and neither were his dreams of getting drafted to play in the NFL, even if he didn't truly believe it at the time.
You would have never got this out of me back then, but I do think the reality sets in of like, hey, I've been in college football for 4 years. I haven't done squat. Like, this idea that I'm going to be an NFL first round quarterback, like, all right, there's many steps that we got to, accomplish before that. That being said, if we did this interview back in 2017, I would have said, and this was true, like, chip on the shoulder, I'm going to Pittsburgh. It's a year-long business trip. Let's work harder than we ever had. Let's dig in. That was very much my mindset. I got in the best shape of my life. Like, that's how I was wired. And that is true. What also is true is, again, I think, the mentality is, I just want to have success. Like, I just want to be a successful college starting quarterback, and then let the chips fall where they may. Like, let's chill a little bit on the, first round NFL draft pick conversation. So I think there was some of that. But again, like, and maybe this is contradictory, my mindset very much, and this was truthful, was, all right, I got one more shot at this. Let's get back up. Let's get back on the saddle. If I go ball out at Pitt for one more year, just like Nate Peterman did at Pitt, transferring from Tennessee there, that I can be right in the NFL draft conversation and have a successful year. So that was my mentality. And it wasn't just naive. Like I can remember in the spring of 2016 when I was battling with Darnold, Clay Helton sat us both down and said, guys, I got a problem. It's a great problem to have, but I got 2 NFL quarterbacks on my couch right here, and I only can pick one as the starter. And I remember I had a coach at Pitt tell me, hey, there's this other guy that played before you who's now on an NFL roster, and you're playing at a higher level than him. And I don't think they were lying in my face, but it wasn't just like this naive, like, I don't have talent, I'm missing the boat. It was very much, let's just get back on the saddle, keep working, because you're doing things in practice. Let's just try to do it in a game kind of thing. And so it's kind of a roundabout answer, but that's how I approached it.
Max would end up playing just 6 games at Pitt in 2017 before suffering a season-ending shoulder injury against Syracuse. He spent the next 18 months rehabbing, but after the 2018 draft came and went, Max found himself with one more shot to fulfill his dream of becoming an NFL quarterback.
I had a workout with the Steelers in that same facility, Pitt facility, in December of 2018. And I remember being on the right hash, and they asked me to throw a comeback, a 20-yard comeback to the left sideline. And I could get it there. And, if you were watching me throw, you'd be like, all right, whatever, it's a fine throw. But I remember in my mind being like, that's not going to get it done in the National Football League. And not only the literal arm strength, but the confidence in the back of your mind to let it rip kind of thing. And that's when I remember getting back on the bus and they drive you to the airport. That's when, and it took me 2 more months to admit it to my dad and my family and my girlfriend at the time. But the initial injury and then the workout for the Steelers 18 months later, coming onto that bus, I remember, looking, I can visualize it in my head right now, looking out the window of the bus being like, this is it. I don't got it in me anymore.
Now, at this point, Max told me he had lost his love for football. He said he felt beat down after chasing this one dream for basically his entire life. So he packed his bags for the East Coast, where he got a marketing internship with Gary Vee in New York City, a reality that proved to be much less glamorous than his life as a USC quarterback.
Remember, I had saved up 10 grand from my stipend checks in college, which again kind of speaks to how I'm wired of forward thinking and whatnot. And had that minimum wage at Gary, and I was able to make ends meet. I think, I remember I slept at my office for 3 months in the summer of 2019 at Gary.
Now, Max would spend the next 5 years bouncing between marketing jobs and commercial real estate. But eventually, his love for football slowly started to creep back. But it didn't come out of nowhere.
When I was the backup quarterback at USC, when Cody Kessler on Fridays would do his 2-minute drill, I would always be on the sideline and kind of messing around with 4 or 5 people, and I would commentate the 2-minute drive. And so that kind of planted the seed of, this commentating thing might be something whenever the time comes. And when I got hurt at Pitt, they did a freshman scrimmage. Funny enough, Kenny Pickett was the freshman quarterback. And for whatever reason, they put me on the mic and I announced that freshman scrimmage in the indoor facility. And so it was fun. And especially at that point, I literally announced it with a sling on my right shoulder, and you're kind of down in the dumps. And that gave me a new little spark and maybe a look into my future about what could come. And so that happened in 2017, 2018 comes in. I'm saying, I want to try to get into commentating as well. And YouTube videos, breaking down Pac-12 footage, to then package that into a reel, to then use that reel to pitch to networks and agents and whatnot, was very much a method to the madness. And what I was working on, like you said, in the kitchen in Hermosa Beach in 2018.
Max went on to become a pre- and post-game analyst for USC in 2019, which he eventually parlayed into analyst positions with Stadium and SiriusXM. And now the business of a college football bust looks a lot different than it did just 6 years ago.
This is a great question, and this might be the best clip of the whole show, because I think this is good insight for anyone in the content creator space or anyone interested in sports as well. My pie chart has changed every year the past 3 or 4 years. 3 years ago when I was just getting into real estate, which I no longer am, I would say broadcasting was 90% and real estate was 10% of my income. And at that point, I very much needed to lean on my girlfriend to support me. Not in a huge way, but I don't think I would have been able to live in Los Angeles at that time. And then I would say up until last year, it was probably 50-50 real estate broadcasting. And then this summer I have left and fully supporting myself. And then this summer I've left real estate, and I would say my tax return for this year, because I still have deals that I'm doing real estate wise, it'll probably be a third in terms of real estate broadcasting and brand deals from social media. Maybe a little bit less than a third for the brand deals on social media. And then looking forward to next year when I won't have real estate, it'll probably be 50-50 broadcasting income and social media brand deals.
Now, for someone who 5 or 6 years ago was completely done with football, to be making a career in the sport in a completely different way than he was expecting is impressive. But perhaps the part of this conversation I found most interesting was Max's perspective on how his career played out, and more specifically, the reminder he keeps around. I want to close on this. There's an article that said that in your home office, you have an image of your high school team about to come out for your second consecutive state championship. And then you have a screenshot of an article that talks about the biggest busts of all time with you as the cover. Do you still have that hung up in your office?
I do. I can go here. 2 seconds.
All right.
It's right here. It's in my backdrop of my content that I film. All decade, the biggest busts. Adam Gorney, who's actually a good guy. It's all good. He's just doing his job. But yeah, it's motivation, man. It's not just me trying to be some hardo or whatnot. It definitely hits home for me. I think it's a good reminder of, not that I'm like, vengeful towards the game of football, but just it's a good reminder of, all the work and investment that I put in that, didn't necessarily pay off. And it puts a healthy, genuinely, I think a healthy chip on my shoulder with something to prove. And that college football chapter may not have worked out for me. That NFL chapter may not have come through, but, kind of that motivation to see what I can create in the back half of my 20s and the rest of my life.
Thanks again to Max for sitting down with me. If you want to listen to the full hour-long conversation Max and I had, where we get more into the weeds about his business and his career, that's available now wherever you listen to podcasts. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next video.